Hey everyone. So today I want to talk to you about cloud rendering and an awesome collaboration we have with Drop and Render. So this basically all came about while I was trying to finish film effects, and I was rendering the Obscurus, which has a lot of volumes and a lot of lights inside of the volume, and it was just taking way too long to render on a single machine, which I'm sure you guys can relate to. I'm sure you've had projects that have had very heavy sims or caches or renders, and it's really annoying to have to do it when you don't have the resources of a studio like a render farm. So I found this service and I started using it. I tested several, and a lot of them were, expecting you to jump through a lot of hoops to get it working. But then I came across Drop and Render, and it was really simple and easy to use. But then when I submitted my first renders, they actually failed. And they, without me having to reach out to the support, they actually reached out to me and said, hey, look, we see your renders have failed, let's help you. And since then, I've started working with them to try and resolve some of these issues. And a lot of the issues were actually just that our DoubleJump tools that we were submitting with had been set up in a way that wasn't really working with their system. So since then, I have actually changed our DoubleJump tools so that it will work with the system. But then also on their side, they had a few things that they hadn't accounted for in USD, like UDIM syntaxes and also stitch files and things like that. And so we sort of collaboratively worked together to improve this system. And in doing so, I can now say quite comfortably that this works really well. It should work really easily with default Houdini nodes, but it also will work with our DoubleJump tools, which is fantastic, because if you want to use our pipeline to make your lives easier, then of course you can still use Drop and Render. And so since I was using them and found the service to be really great, I also asked them, well, would you offer our students some discounts and sort of have a collaboration here? And they were more than happy. So look out for those discount codes. At this stage of recording this video, I'm not really sure which workshops will offer this on, or whether it will just be across all of our workshops, but just look out for them, or reach out to us and ask. I'm sure we can arrange something for you, even if it isn't on your workshop. So yeah, I'm very excited to show you this. So I'm going to show you how it works, just so that you have a little bit of a tutorial intro into submitting your first render. Okay, so here is the website, and of course you would need to have signed up. When you sign up, you get a few free credits, and then you're sort of good to go. You'll also have to install a little package which creates an HDA and a few other files on your machine. Once you're ready to go, it basically is exactly as the name suggests. It's Drop and Render. You're literally dropping down a node and then submitting to render, which is the thing I like the most about this. So here's our USD setup for film effects Obscurus, and here's my render node. So this is a DoubleJump render node. If you're not familiar with this, it is essentially a wrapper for your Karma render settings, a little bit of overscan on your camera, and some metadata, as well as your USD render ROP, which also gets fetched into a ROP context, so you can chain it up the way you would usually want to with ROPs. Okay. So you don't have to use this node, but if you do, our nodes will work with their system. There is one small gotcha that I'm going to show you just now, but it's a bug that they're working on, so maybe by the time you watch this, it won't even be necessary. So we're going to stick down a Drop and Render node in here. So this just comes with a simple little HDA. We stick it down and we can choose our settings. Now there are different priority queues, or almost like lanes, that you can choose from. The higher you go, the more it costs, but then it is prioritized above other jobs that are lower in that priority. But in this case, I have been using Sapphire the whole time, which is the lowest, and my renders go through very quickly, so I've had no problem with that. And you can also override a particular frame range if you want, so you can say maybe 154 there, so I'm going to render just a single frame regardless of what my ROP says. Okay. Now the first thing you need to do is you have to start your Cloud Manager. This must be open in order for you to submit. So you can open it just through the Start menu once you've installed all of the software, but otherwise you just need to start it through this button. And then you can log in like this, And now sometimes when you log in, it's going to ask you to update. Of course, you should update, and you can check your plugins as well to make sure that you have the latest plugins. So for Houdini here, I know I've got the latest. But if you need to update, I would recommend that you restart Houdini, because sometimes if it has to update the HDA, it is overriding the same HDA file rather than versioning up, which can sometimes cause a crash in Houdini. So just be a little bit careful of that. But once you're up to date, then you should be good to go. And this is going to be your main render manager, where you've got your queue of jobs, your transfers if there are any, and then an archive of old jobs. Okay. Now, on here, with that still open, but you can minimize and move beyond it, we're just going to submit a project. It pops up with this list, but you don't have to fill anything in. You just click scene check. This is going to go through your scene. Based on the ROPs that are needing to be submitted, it's going to fetch all the information about which assets those are referencing in the chain, and therefore it's going to figure out what it needs to essentially upload in order to be able to render this frame or the frame range that you've selected. All right. Also, this submissions list is going to list all of your ROPs that you have chained up. If this is empty, that's your first mistake to fix, is you need to go and make sure everything is chained up correctly so that it does submit. But simply connecting it like that should do. So there we have it. There's the render, and if you click on it, you'll find certain information about it, like what frame range and what node it's submitting, and your output path. But you'll see here that my output path is actually not correct, and it is warning me that the output path has no file extension. This is the small little bug that is only really for if you are using a DoubleJump render node. And the reason for this is because what it needs to do is, on the Karma render settings node, it wants to grab the output picture path here. But the problem with this is it's an expression. Okay, so if I click here, you'll see that it's an expression, and it doesn't really at this stage know how to evaluate it when it finds an expression. It's just grabbing the whole string. Okay, there are kind of complexities as to why they can't just simply evaluate it every time it's an expression, because of course even within the string you could have expressions or like variables like your $F4, so they need to evaluate that in a very specific way. So they're working on a fix for that. I'm hoping that by the time you even watch this, that won't even be a problem anymore. But for the meantime, if you are using one of our render nodes and you're ready to submit, all you need to do is unlock the node and break the link to just that one parameter. I know it's annoying. It will be fixed hopefully soon. They have been so on board with fixing everything that I've flagged to them. This is the one thing that's still outstanding, so I'm sure they're going to come up with a fix at some point for that. Okay, so once I'm ready and I've fixed that, I'm also going to save, because you'll notice that when I did the scene check, the first scene check, it also was saying that I had unsaved changes in my scene. Now that's the most common error you're going to find, because even dropping down the drop and render node or changing the frame range here is of course being detected as an unsaved change. So usually what I will do is just run the scene check, make sure I have no other errors except for the unsaved changes, then I will save and rerun the scene check, because it should be the last thing you do, because otherwise any other fixes you make are going to need to be saved again. Okay, so now you'll see I've got success in every front. You can see, click here and see a list of HDAs that it's going to upload. You can list to see information about your OCIO profile, also check what Houdini version you've got. And if you come under assets, you can see the list of all the assets that it is syncing. And you'll see here, a lot of these are already synced because I have been submitting test frames, and once it has uploaded this, it still stores it and it doesn't have to upload it again. So, future frames get a lot quicker to render. But some of them, like if we scroll down, you'll find some of them it may have found that something has changed. Maybe there was an update, and so it needs to resync that. Okay. Also, certain files can be excluded from here, so you can actually choose what gets excluded or not. And sometimes when you try and submit, it'll pop up and warn you that certain things are going to be excluded because it maybe doesn't know how to upload it, and you need to tell it whether or not it can ignore it. So there's a little bit of management of which assets get uploaded. Okay, but it's mostly automatic, so when you're saying, hey, render this frame, it is figuring out everything that it needs to be able to render that frame. Okay, and then as long as you're all good there, and now that we've fixed that output path error, you'll see here that my path is correct. I know this font is very, very small, so you might not be able to see it, but trust me, it is correct. Now I can submit project. And if I do submit the project, it'll take a second, and then it's going to appear in my render queue. It'll also appear in the transfer queue because there are a few files that will need transferred first, and then it will also appear on the website under the overview. Also on the dashboard, there's an overview of all your renders, but there's also a render monitor page where it will appear. Okay. I also believe there's a mobile app, so you can even keep track of it. You could submit renders, and then while you're out having fun, you could be checking on your renders, and you know when it's time to go home and do the comp. Okay, so and that's pretty much it. That's how it works. You'll see there's my render. So now it's saying uploading, so it's in the upload process. So we'll see the progress here as it slowly does upload. You'll also see that same job here, and it'll appear in our transfer list there. And you'll also see the upload progress compared to, once this finishes, then it will show you the render progress, and it shows you as well which queue you're in, and then the time you've been in that queue. What's also nice about this, you can open your output directory directly from here with that button. When it's finished rendering, it is going to download the file straight to the actual target location. So I think you can disable that as the default, but by default, it's going to end up that the render is going to be exactly where you would have put it if you had rendered locally. So as long as you've still got an internet connection, you're basically able to just submit it, it renders, and it dumps the file exactly where it would have been if you'd done it yourself. Really simple. You can, once it is submitted, you can close that dialog, but do keep this one open, okay, so that you can manage it. And that's it. So let me know, obviously, if you find any issues with the service. I can flag to them that our students have certain issues, particularly if you're all having the same issue, it'll raise the priority of fixing that bug. And if they have more examples to work with, then of course it helps them resolve some of the issues. They've been using my scenes as examples, but obviously those are only come across certain problems. You might come across others. So we can actually help them get their system really smooth. And as I said, we are collaborating, so any changes I make to the DoubleJump tools, I'll make sure that they work with Drop and Render. And if you guys want to, you can just keep using the DoubleJump pipeline that I'm continuing to add to and build up, and you'll still be able to use Drop and Render as a service. So, happy rendering, and I'll see you guys in the next one.